a new day. This is a new day full of sound and light, some cell phones, and expectation. This day has been waiting for you. This day has been waiting especially for you, to embrace you, to guide you. This day has been waiting with open arms, just for you. This is the day we have been given. Let's not waste it. Come now and let us worship together. Please rise, embody your spirit. The teal hymnal, teal or light green, what do you like to call it? We're gonna sing together 1046, Shall We Gather at the River? Great church anthem. Join us. Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? Wow, that's good to hear, actually. Kind of rare. I'm glad that you're doing wonderfully. That's wonderful. Well, welcome. My name is Reverend Joseph Boyd. Welcome, everybody. This is such a beautiful day, isn't it? Nice and cool. And yeah, I'm really excited about today, not just for the service, but immediately following service. And I did check, you were all invited. We're going to marry Achilles and Randy out in the courtyard if the weather permits. And I think it might. So that's going to be at 12:30. You can have a little coffee and, have a little break and then join us outside so we can commemorate this special day. So I'm really happy for that. Meditation tonight at 7 p.m. Many of you know, definitely our people on Zoom know, we have a Zoom channel, and Linda Scharf is leading meditation on that Zoom channel today at 7 p.m. She leads meditation every Wednesday morning at 11 and every Sunday evening at 7. It's open to everyone. And work party next Saturday, right? Next Saturday at 10 a.m. What is work party? Someone want to offer? What is it? The experienced people said it's mostly work. Well, we get you in with the party. There is donuts, right? Donuts maybe, and coffee. So there's some party elements of it. Yeah, Jim.
That's when 99% of the membership doesn't show up.
Well, maybe we can make it 98. So if you have some time, especially if you have some energy, if you have, yeah, come Saturday, 10 a.m. I mean, there's so much that we can do and so much that has been done to make sure the space is beautiful, make sure this place is clean. It's not an accident that chairs are all set out and that there are hymnals on them. It's not an accident that we have a ceiling that actually is stable and is not falling through. All this is actually done by our board, but also our membership. So if you can join us Saturday, 10 a.m., that'll be a great help. And save the date for July 31st. Come here on Sunday because we're going to have a special guest, Dr. Homer Warren, who's a professor emeritus of marketing at Youngstown State University. We had this really interesting walk around Wick Park where we talked about, and this is mostly his research, consumer consciousness. And he's done lots of studies. He's written a book about it, about how we are civilized, especially in this country, to have a consumer consciousness, that the goal of life is to consume as much as possible. And we will compete with each other to consume as much as we can. And he wants to offer an alternative called producer consciousness that actually could benefit the economy and also benefit our psyches, our minds. So join us. He's going to be a special guest. We're going to have after service a discussion about his book, and he has a few questions for us to engage in the difference between consumer consciousness and producer consciousness. That's 2 weeks from now, July 31st. Yeah, so be here for that. And I think we're going to Zoom that if we can too. So for everyone on Zoom, you can join us with Dr. Warren. And now, Melissa Smith, who will offer our chalice lighting.
When we first gathered as worship associates to discuss the upcoming services for July, Into the Wild made me automatically think of a book I was listening to, written by Forrest Church, whose subtitle was My Journey into the Valley of the Shadows. But for our chalice lighting today, I decided to choose a reading that was more appropriate as aspirational in the spirit of the church. And it's written by playwright George Bernard Shaw. This is the true joy in life, being recognized by yourself as a mighty one, being a force of nature instead of a feverish clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community. And as long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it whatever I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. For the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle to me. It is a sort of splendid torch, which I've got to hold up for a moment. I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. We light our chalice today in celebration of the might of our community of spirit, which is gathered here today.
It's time for our covenant. All right. So if you want to look in your order of service, join me.
Love is the spirit
of
of
this
this
church
church.
and service
Service
its law.
its law.
This is our
Our
great
great
covenant
covenant.
to dwell together
Together
in
in
peace,
peace,
to seek
to
the
seek the
truth
truth
in
in
love,
love,
and to help one
one
another.
another.
My gosh, it was synchronous even with Zoom. It must be a miracle.
I'm just reading the covenant.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Each month, we give to a local cat. We donate all our loose cash and unmarked checks in the offering plate to a nonprofit organization whose mission and actions are consistent with UU principles and the mission of UUYO. For those in the sanctuary, there are silver plates near the exits where you can place your offering as you leave the service. The Share the Plate recipient for July is Trumbull Neighborhood Partnership Garden Resources of Warren, whose acronym is GROW. GROW is an urban agriculture program that works to address the identified food deserts of Warren by providing technical support, leadership development, and educational programming for Warren's community gardens and manages the Warren Farmers Market. GROW partners with many organizations and community members to increase access to healthy, affordable, locally grown foods. GROW is committed to developing a local and regional food system that reduces food insecurity and creates economic development opportunities. Through the Good Food Here program, small convenience stores in the city sell produce. Currently, there are 2 local stores participating in the program. Both locations are interested in increasing the amount of fresh and local foods they supply in their stores for their customers. GROW seeks to continue working with small businesses that would like to expand their current fresh food offerings and the various payment options, including SNAP and WIC. We will now receive the offering that supports the life of Youngstown, the Mahoning Valley, and our wider world.
Embody your spirit for hymn 142 in the gray hymnal.
There be light, let there be understanding, let all the nations gather, let them be face to face. Open our lips, the sword. Perish the angry judgment. Perish the bombs and hunger. Perish the fight for gain. Let there be light. Open our hearts to wonder. Perish the way of terror. Hollow the world God made.
Please join me for a time of silent meditation. You can sit up a little bit if that's comfortable for you. Be awake, but not tense. We're going to breathe together. And ask yourself the question, who does your breath belong to? We'll meditate on that. So our first reading today is from Forest Church, who Melissa Smith mentioned, in a book called Love and Death. Death is central to my definition of religion. Religion is our human response to the dual reality of being alive and having to die. We are not the animal with advanced language or tools as much as we are the religious animal. Knowing that we must die, we question what life means. The answers we arrive at may not be religious answers, but the questions death forces us to ask are at heart religious questions. Where did I come from? Who am I? Where am I going? What is life's purpose? What does this all signify? The goal is to live in such a way that our lives will prove worth dying for. This is where love comes into the picture. The one thing that can't be taken from us, even by death, is the love we give away before we go. Today, I turn to the dual theme of love and death with a new sense of urgency. On February 4th, 2008, I informed the members and friends of All Souls Unitarian Church in New York City, whose destiny and mine have been linked for so many years, that my esophageal cancer, first diagnosed and treated in the fall of 2006, had returned with a vengeance, and that my time remaining was likely to be numbered in months, not years. I won't predict how my body will hold up during the course of this treatment, I wrote, but I can tell you what I hope to do. Through all of our stories, though all of our stories end in the middle, with ongoing business piled high, I should like to end my story, if I may, by summing up my thoughts on love and death in a book that might bring as much comfort to others as you have brought to me.
Because I could not stop for death is one of the first of Emily Dickinson's poems that I encountered in 10th grade English. And it has stuck with me throughout the years. It reemerged as a tribute to my mother's memorial service in 2002 as she entered the wild forever unknown shadows, which tulip represents. Because I could not stop for death, she kindly stopped for me. He kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove. He knew no haste, and I had put away my labors and my leisure too for his civility. We passed the school where children strove at research in the ring. We passed the field of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun, or rather, he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer on my gown, my tippet only tulle. We passed before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then, 'tis centuries, and yet feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horse's head were towards eternity.
when Forrest Church found out he had cancer, he was given 6 months to live. And according to his writings, he was being given the final exam, is what he called it. His view of religion is that the final exam is how you are able to face your mortality, your limits, the great unknown. On a personal note, he might have had a little bit of ego in this. He felt that it was a test of a minister, that everything we do is ultimately about the great wilderness, the great mystery, the most basic fact of our lives. He's not the only one who thought this way. The first time I began Zen practice in Oregon, I met a monk and priest named Reverend Judy Mako. And I asked her, what is this practice about? And she looked at me straight with an open face and said, as if she was telling me the sky was blue, I'm preparing for death. I'm preparing for my death. I visited the small priory where she lived when I visited Portland just a few weeks ago. And I learned that she had died the summer before. And when the new monk told me this, I felt something was very odd. I didn't expect to feel. I felt this odd sense of comfort and peace. I knew she was preparing for this. But I think preparing for death is exactly like preparing for life. As Lennon said, I think it has other plans for us. Cats and, it has other plans for us. Forrest Church's plan was to stay on as minister during his sickness for the last 6 months of his life and to share his journey with the congregation very openly, both his physical journey, his emotional journey, his spiritual journey. He wrote the text, Love and Death, during those 6 months. And he said it was very good he wasn't a perfectionist because he didn't have much time to do it. The funny thing is, he kept outliving his prognosis. 6 months came and went. And a year and a half later, he said in a sermon, I feel kind of sheepish still being here. Don't worry, I really am dying. I just don't know when. Isn't that true for all of us? I just don't know when. I heard a story that in private, someone asked him what his life was like knowing he was going to die very soon and that everyone in his life knew he was going to die very soon. And his answer, and this is part of his personality, it was very unexpected. He said, it's great, actually. People quit bothering me about little things. He said he was finally able to be present, to show up for his life because he didn't know how many more days he was going to have. He wrote the book, Love and Death, to share a theology that has helped many people, that in the end, all that matters is the love that we give away, and that the love that we give away will certainly outlive us. I've had my own thoughts about what it means to be alive during this time. And I found that death plays a pretty important role in how I think about that question. I was in Portland, Oregon when Roe v. Wade was overturned. And I had probably, like some of you, the visceral experience of witnessing myself and others who felt that they were being thrust into the wilderness, right? A wilderness with few protections, no protection, no support, no infrastructure. with the continued shootings, I've talked with many of you who've expressed the feeling quite well. One person said it this way: it's like being on a sinking ship. That's how it feels. They are living during a time of breakdown, loss of protection, loss of what we expected of civilization and government, even though we felt our expectations were really low. You know, that's the pain, actually. Our expectations actually we felt were pretty low, but even those are not quite met. There's a palpable sense that no one is looking out for the most vulnerable. And we are all, in the end, left to look out for ourselves. This outlook, understandably, leads to a lot of stress, trauma, more violence. That in the end, we are on our own in this vast wilderness. But I had a thought that is not new, but it was new to me. And it's been helpful in helping to orient myself. And I'd like to share it with you. We have a few minutes, I think. When I was in Oregon, the wildfires had already started. And I heard from friends who were trying to predict if their house was going to be safe and for how much longer. And there was a real cultural sense in Oregon of the vulnerability of the land and the impermanence of it. Wondering how much longer people can even live here. And the thought I had was this: yes, this place is vulnerable. It is vulnerable to the actions or inactions of us and numerous other factors too. And the second thought I had was, I'm vulnerable too. And I'm temporary. I'm vulnerable to the world and the factors in the world. And everyone else is vulnerable too, in a very specific way, based on their circumstances, where they live, family history, race, gender, etc. But no matter how much money or protection there is, that vulnerability is true. Our temporariness in this form is true. But then came the thought, which was not a new one, but a new one to me. That temporariness, that vulnerability, is the only way that love is possible. Not sentimental love, not idealized love, real love. If we weren't so vulnerable all the time, every minute, love would only be a pretty idea. We would truly be islands if we were not vulnerable, truly. Self-existing. And we might want to love our neighbors, our world, but the only way to actually share that is vulnerability. The fact that we are porous, literally. I'm not being just emotional, I'm talking physically. We are porous, taking in and giving to the world without even being aware of it. The only reason we're breathing is because of that openness. Because we take, without even thinking, what is being offered, and we, in return, give something back that is life-giving, without even knowing it. The breath of life. We live in a world that tries to get us to manage that vulnerability by staking claim and ownership. That's my breath. I'm going to put this into a savings account so I can have it later. Our actual experiences we're sharing, we don't even know we're sharing. There's no such thing as my breath and your breath. Did I just take your breath? Do you have mine right now? I'm looking for my breath. The only way we can live without vulnerability is if we cut ourselves off. Literally holding our breath. Cutting ourselves off from healing, necessary power in the world, the breath of our community. And that experience gave me a response to the crisis we are facing right now, which I didn't expect. These are some of the questions, right? What's the point of activism? What's the point of doing anything if progress is only an idea, not a reality? Why show up or try to change or offer anything if it can be changed so quickly? I think those questions are real good questions. Why do any of this if death can take it? Death of our planet, death of our long-held protections, death of our ideals. And the feeling I had when I was in Oregon that I still have this morning is that I don't offer what I can because I think it will guarantee the world will be saved. I offer what I can because I love the world. And perhaps that is what saves it. I love a world that is vulnerable and perhaps temporary. Perhaps. I don't love a person less because they are temporary. I don't love myself less because I'm temporary. I actually love them more. I offer whatever I can, wherever I can, because I love the world. And I love myself. And I love our community. And these three are the same life, the same breath, the same predicament. I now understand this old hagiographic story of Martin Luther. I wonder if you've heard of this one, Lowell. Someone was said to ask him, I think it's just legendary, what he would do if the world would end tomorrow. What will you do if the world will end tomorrow? According to legend, his answer said, I would plant a tree. He would sow hope. That's a spiritual response. Why will we as a church do whatever we can in our power to offer anyone access to reproductive care? Why are we going to do that? It's because we love the world. And we love our community. If things get easier in the future for folks, that's wonderful. Oh, that'll be great. And we're going to celebrate that. And if things get worse, the path doesn't change. We don't need to do what we do for a prescribed outcome because we think we can outrun vulnerability. No. It's because we love the world. A world that is vulnerable. A world that may be temporary. And it could be just strange. I'm kind of curious, I'm testing this out with you, but that actually inspires me to offer more. I'm drawn to loving the world. offering whatever I and we as a church can for no other reason than because we love the world. And I think attention is the most basic and most potent form of love. I don't offer attention anymore because I think it's going to lead to solutions or strategies. It might, but that's not why I offer attention. I offer attention because I love the world. And attention is the most basic form of love. Especially when things feel hopeless or disappointing. That is when we should pay and offer more attention, more love. It's when it's needed more, not less. We don't abandon a person on their deathbed because they're not going to be here tomorrow, maybe, right? We don't do that. No. We offer actually even more attention to that person. And have you ever sat with someone at a deathbed? I know many of you have. When I do it, there's a feeling I have of finally living in reality. You know what I mean? The reality that all of this, including ourselves, is very, very precious and temporary. And that makes the moment feel more poignant, more full, more true, and invigorating in a strange way. We can feel we're on the edge of life and death, on the edge of the wilderness. In that moment, it becomes clear. We do what we do for the moment. If we can put some water on someone's lips, we do it just for the sake of that, to show appreciation for what's in front of us in this moment. We love a person right in front of us. Why? Because we love people. That's sufficient unto itself. We all get opportunities to love the world. I think endless opportunities, actually, all of us. Even when we're on our deathbed, we can love our caretakers, our nurses, our own temporary bodies that have taken us this far. It's not a special skill to love the world. You don't need to go to seminary. You don't need a special degree. You don't need to be an engineer. It's not a special skill. It's built into us. It's what makes us who we are. And I've come to the thought this is a no matter what kind of thing. If things turn out the way that we would hope, the path is clear. We offer attention and we love the world. We offer whatever we can, including celebration. And we do that just as much for ourselves as for other people. It reminds us what we're really about. And it shows us how to navigate the wilderness. We're courageous enough to love an unpredictable, unstable, vulnerable, temporary world. And this is actually possible. It's not just an idea. That's why we're here. Because as a community, this actually becomes possible for each and every one of us to live in our own unique way in our lives. To embody this each and every moment of our life. There's always an opportunity to show love and appreciation. And it's felt most acutely when the stakes are high and everything feels threatened. And in the midst of all of that, there are surprises. Cats. wonderful surprises. We get the opportunity to be married. I'm looking forward to marrying Randy and Achilles after service. It's the perfect example of loving each other, come what may. Come what may. It's a wonderfully deep practice, whether we're married or not, to love each other, to love the world, come what may. And when we face our own limits, we love ourselves and our limits. That's part of loving vulnerability, part of loving that which has limits, that which is temporary, including ourselves. There's nothing in the way of love, nothing at all. Even our cynicism, anger, despair, that can be hugely impactful and positive, I think, if we are reoriented to practicing loving attention no matter what. There is nothing we need to manage, nothing we need to do away with. At General Assembly this year in Portland, other than seeing my family, I did go to General Assembly, and just so you know, and the theme was meeting this moment. That was the theme, meeting this moment. And what I learned at General Assembly was something I needed to be reminded of. We can't think our way or strategize our way into this moment. If we try to figure it out, we will be here the rest of our lives trying to figure it out. It's not a bad thing, actually. But meeting the moment has nothing to do with that. Meeting the moment is developing the ability to show up knowing we have very little, if any, understanding, and being willing to show up anyway. We don't need to wait to figure anything out before we commit to showing up for our lives and commit to showing up for each other. We show up for life because we're given a life. And we don't know what it means. And no one else really does either. And that's not a problem. We can show up and love the world and learn how to love better through our mistakes. Another thing I learned from Reverend Mako, one day I asked her, what was her life like? She said, one continuous mistake. I didn't know at the time this was a line in a very famous sutra, but I was very touched by it. She said, no mistakes, no practice. I took that to mean if we feel we're managing okay, doing well enough, pretty perfect, actually, like we're doing all right. We're closing ourselves off from learning. Maybe it's time to let more of the world in, to show up where we don't usually show up, and find out ourselves what it means to live. Find out for ourselves what it means to love, what it means to die. Nobody's an expert in living, and thankfully, we don't need experts. We just need courage and commitment. The commitment to love the world in all its reality. Vulnerable, temporary, fleeting, and precious. It's really precious to be here, isn't it? It's really precious to be here with all of you. But it's not so precious that we should hold ourselves back. As the poet Derek Walcott says, give ourselves back to ourselves. Give ourselves to the world. Give ourselves to each other. One continuous mistake. And we do this again and again, not because we are trying to get out of the wilderness to someplace else. We do this because we love even the wilderness. We love our life. We love our world. We love the precious opportunity to be here now. Please pray with me. Spirit of love, so grateful for this opportunity to be here. Many blessings on the marriage upcoming ceremony for Randy and Achilles. Blessings for everyone here who have come from where they've come from. May they enjoy good coffee and good snacks and good fellowship with all the people here. And may they carry that love out into the world. Please help us to see how we can love this moment. And if we don't know how, trust that just breathing is a form of love. Giving and receiving without even being aware of it, without even trying. Thank you for this precious, precious opportunity. All this we pray. Amen. Please rise and body your spirit for our closing hymn, which is The Fire of Commitment. Someone give me, okay, what's the number for that one?
1028.
1028 in the teal hymn, The Fire of Commitment.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts until we are together again.
As you depart, please remember the one great fact. You are loved and never truly alone. Join us for coffee and food, and then we'll marry Randy and Achilles at 12:30.
Hello. Coffee time, people. You're muted, Melissa.
Hello,
Oh.
everybody.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, the wedding is not going to be on Zoom. So we're not invited, I guess. But I wanted to reiterate